Atomicrops is one of those games whose premise, unfortunately, is more exciting than its gameplay. But this is a roguelike slash farming game that involves you surviving after a nuclear apocalypse. You are the only farmer left in a land of mutated fruits, vegetables, and animals. And it's up to you to grow the food for your town while keeping yourself alive from ever-increasing threats of rabbits and even an evil sun. So, the gameplay itself is split into essentially 3 different kinds of gameplay. You begin during the daytime, as you see here, gathering resources and planting product or seeds in your land. You can use a tractor as kind of a super that charges up, and the land itself is procedurally generated on load up, but after that it remains fixed for the length of your playthrough. If you run out of health, you are dead and you will be restarting the entire game. Now, as you gather resources, you'll find trinkets, items, and more seeds. You can see my seed total on the left there. Once you go back to your farm, you can plant them and water to keep your crops growing. Enemies will come in to try and kill you or go after your crops, and it's up to you to fight them back. And as things get harder, you're forced to juggle between keeping your crops going while not being overwhelmed by the various waves of enemies. And they'll continue to spawn for each wave if you kill them or not. And as you can see, it can get very hectic. Now, to defend yourself, you can get additional perks and buy weapons from the town. And that takes us to the third kind of system in Atomicrops. After each night, all the product that you're able to grow gets transformed into currency, which you can then use in the town. And the town provides you with upgrades as well as the means of returning or unlocking more areas, which in turn give you more seeds and more items to grow your power. And the game itself is kind of into that, or it's built around that progression that the more you play, the harder it gets, and you either keep up with that progression or fall behind and lose. Now, the guns I'm choosing from here, unfortunately, they only last for 1 day with this character, and the cost goes up exponentially or progressively with each night. And it definitely gives you that sense of how far can you go. If you can survive to the end of a season, you are met with one of the game's crazy boss fights. And I really do like the aesthetics of the game. It reminds me almost of like the 16-bit era, Zombies Ate My Neighbors, LucasArts kind of look to it. And Atomicrops has some very interesting gameplay loops that all seem to work separately of each other. And that unfortunately takes me to my big problem with the game, at least for right now. And we'll talk about that next, but first a quick word to our current Game Wisdom supporters and sponsors. And now for a quick thank you to our current Game Wisdom Patreon supporters and sponsors. And if you'd like to continue this discussion on game design, be sure to check out our Discord channel, linked down below. If you're looking for more wisdom about game design, be sure to check out my latest offering of books, 20 Essential Games to Study, aimed for first-time developers and students looking for some inspiration for their upcoming games, and Game Design Deep Dive Platformers if you're interested in anything regarding 2D and 3D platforming design. They're both available in print, digital, and wherever books are being sold. Despite Atomicrops being on the Epic Games Store right now, it is on early access, and the version that we are playing right now may not represent the current version of it. So far the game has had, I believe, 1 or 2 major updates with at least 2 more planned at the moment before it hits 1.0. And with that said, we had some issues with the game that we ran into on stream. First is that each one of these gameplay loops doesn't really feel complete at the moment. The farming is more repetitive and busy work, where you're having to constantly keep digging and having to water your plants. There are various items and characters you can get to help you, but there's no real sense of depth to the farming side of things. It's just plumb in the ground, get fertilizer, and you're done. We got a tractor that produces seeds when cleaning up, and it was completely OP because we just kept getting free seeds, which you could then use to just keep on producing. And you're rewarded with more resources and kind of the game's persistent element or persistent resource based on the more you grow in a season. So it kind of is one of those cases where the game at the moment is very easy to break. Combat is also basic as well, and I was not a fan of the fact that you can only keep a gun for one night before it breaks. Because as you get further into the game, you are just going to be waylaid by a lot of enemies, and your basic gun is just not going to cut it, and you may not have the resources or the perks to help you out. And for those of you hoping for more of a town growth or kind of sim side of things with the farming and getting resources, it's all kept very basic. There's no, I guess, real connection, I think, between these three systems, unless we're talking about like the very basic of you go from A to B to C. And I would really like to see more of a growth in terms of persistent elements unlocking more content, a little more decision making in terms of your seeds, and more things to do in the town. And while it may not look it, despite the footage, this definitely falls more on a run-based roguelike at the moment than a farming sim like Stardew Valley. And I was kind of hoping for something more along those lines. But as I said, with the game being in early access, there is still time for them to grow and expand on elements. But if you are looking for kind of an action take on Stardew Valley, then this game at the moment is just not going to cut it. And I hope we do see kind of a growth from it, because there are some interesting aspects here. With that said though, we're going to wrap up this first look now. Thank you so much for watching. If you're working on a game that you'd like me to take a look at in the future, please don't say to get in touch and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. Once again, this has been Atomicrops, and I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoy things, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing that the kids are doing these days. Check out our Discord channel linked down below where we hang out and chat game design, and come back later tonight for our regular streamings. But that's it, and tune in for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.